Hello and welcome to the Gambling Files podcast, the podcast that is missing its regular co-host and is joined by a guest co-host that we've had before, none other than Melanie Ellis, partner at Northridge Law. Melanie Ellis, hello.
Hi, John. How are you doing?
I am okay, Mel. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you.
You're looking very well. That's a very nice jumper.
Thank you. It is my semi-Christmas jumper with a snowflake, but nothing else.
I think that's more a personality declaration. So people can... So it's like announcing your stereotypes so that people can save time when they meet you. Shall I talk to her? She might be a bit of a snowflake. Do you know what I mean?
I see what you mean. Yeah, no, I'm not actually. I wouldn't describe myself as a snowflake. And a snow enthusiast, I would say.
And that is a very important distinction.
Yeah, it's very different.
Exactly the kind of thing a snowflake would say. So, Mel, I can't help but notice you've changed the picture in the background from a family one to one of some spooky trees.
But that doesn't mean I've rejected my family in any way. Just
No.
just a seasonal decor. The spooky trees is actually artwork of my husband's late grandmother. I think the spooky roots might be pieces of string or something like that.
Well, it looks great from here.
Yeah, it's cool, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah. And it's right next to your shelf of lawyer trophies.
Yeah, they're not lawyer trophies.
No, I can read the thing from here. It says Best Lawyer 2024 in the middle.
We have got quite a lot of lawyer trophies in the office actually, but those are not them. They're my skiing. Oh, the small one is my daughter's a maths award from school, and the other three are skiing trophies.
Hang on, but that doesn't look like a plastic maths trophy from school.
It's actually described on it as a pensive, like in Harry Potter. It says it's some, I don't know exactly. Pensive.
She goes to a nicer school than I went to, I think.
And me.
But that's it's fabulous. So the lawyer and trophies at your work, did you win any of them?
No, not me. They are they're mostly from my colleagues in the sports teams for their various sports transactions.
Do you ever go through the office and hear people shouting, "Show me the money"?
No, thankfully no.
That is a shame, and I'm sorry that you don't have that. But it's December now, Mel. Hence, you're justified in wearing your snowflake jumper. I've done most of my Christmas shopping.
Oh, well done.
Yeah.
That's good, actually.
I was awake in the middle of the night the other night, and I'm just like, well, I might as well do the fucking Christmas shopping. And I did most of it. Did quite a lot.
That's good. Yeah. Have you wrapped it all yet, though? That's
No, I'm just going to tape the boxes back up.
Oh, fine, okay.
It's kind of wrapping, and Sharpie the name on them. There you go. And I hope I've got it right. But now it'll be fine. Because when you're crap at doing these things, people expect crapness.
Okay, so you're just living up to their expectations.
Or down.
Yeah.
Are you? I bet you're good at wrapping gifts, aren't you?
Not really, actually. I'm quick at wrapping gifts rather than good, I would say. So like usually it's my husband and I doing it together sort of late night on Christmas Eve. And I get through a lot more than he does, but his are neater.
Yeah, but I bet he's also doing that thing where he's like, I'm just going to take my time because then Mel will finish these.
Then I'll only have to do 5 and she'll do 20, yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
We've got even less time this year because we're actually we're not celebrating Christmas as such. We're celebrating the winter solstice on the 21st of December because we're actually flying on Christmas Day to Florida to visit some family. So the flights are a lot cheaper on Christmas Day, I would say.
Can I just make a little suggestion and say that you should take some nice chocolates for the cabin crew?
That's a good idea. Because you're right, they're all having to work on Christmas Day.
Yeah, and the only reason they're having to work is because you booked your
Because of
fucking
me,
flight.
yeah. Me and my family who thought we'd save some money by flying on Christmas Day, yeah.
But no, it's a fun time of year, and anybody who has kids will know that lists are being prepared, and those same people will know lists are being ignored. Although my youngest, he's a real stickler for his Christmas list. He's like, what do you want for Christmas? You've seen the list.
Okay.
What? Just I only want what's on the list.
So if you buy something that's not on the list, is that just like met with derision? Like, what's this?
He's often unimpressed. I think he's going to be a CEO when he's older. Just do what I've told you to do,
Yeah.
how I've told you to do it, by when I've told you to do it by. Yes, Al. But no, I had a thread going in my head before you were talking about getting your flight.
Well, I was talking about
before the
how
solstice talk.
we were wrapping presents.
Yeah, I think it was to do with wrapping presents, which I am notoriously bad at. But I do like to make an effort. I do like to try. Do you know who's good at wrapping presents? I bet. I mean, there is some conjecture in this, but do you know who I think would be good at wrapping presents?
No.
I think every Matrix would be good at wrapping presents. Coincidentally, they're one of the sponsors of this podcast. Because they deliver advanced turnkey platform technology to the global regulated iGaming and lottery industries with outstanding results. Powering the world's biggest brands, solving your biggest challenges, and taking your business to the next level. And there's a little tagline here: every Matrix, everything is possible. And when it says everything is possible, that to me suggests really good gift wrapping is also possible.
Yeah, you're right, it does. And I don't know, do they send you a Christmas gift as part of the sponsorship?
Of course they don't.
Oh. So you'll never know.
No, that's a good call, actually. Maybe they'll hear this. Because, like, I'm really old now. I'm like 51. And like 51-year-olds, we don't get Christmas gifts. We get to get them for everybody else. But, I live alone. I have my kids, X amount of time. Plus, they don't have jobs yet. Lazy little work-shy slugabeds. So, you know what I mean? So, they are getting to that age where they want to get things for people. But I'm always like, great, let me know when you've got a job and we can go shopping.
Oh, you don't give them some money?
Not yet. That is coming. Pocket money is coming.
I feel like I sent you a Christmas gift one year. It might have been a corporate bottle of gin.
I've been sober for like 7 years.
Oh, right, okay. I'm sure you enjoyed it then.
If you did, it may have been regifted. Like, I'm not one of those people like, oh my God, somebody sent me booze. I'm like, oh, I'll give that to such and such. They like being drunk.
Let's see what other things we have in the corporate gift cupboard then.
But also, right, I don't know this for a fact, but I think one of our other sponsors, Optimove, created something called positionless marketing, inspired by basketball. And it's the number one player engagement platform, and it's the iGaming industry's, I think it's the leading CRM software. So it's a very potent tool. But I would think, in creating the positionless marketer concept, they're also advocating good quality Christmas gift wrapping. I mean, whether they celebrate Christmas or not is largely irrelevant because, many of their customers will. And, that's how it works, isn't it? When you're in a SaaS industry, you've got to remember what your customers want, and they probably want nicely wrapped Christmas gifts, I would think. And if you follow the link in the show notes to Optimove, it will tell them that you came from us, and they will give you 1 month free in your first year. Me and Fintan, we had the demo, and it was exceptional. It was almost terrifyingly good. So get the demo, and you'll see exactly what we mean, and you'll go, holy shit, why wasn't I using this before? I could have been wrapping gifts better this whole time.
Yeah. Wow.
Because I think it will free up so much of your time that you'll be able to spend some of it wrapping gifts better. Have you ever had a gift from Clarion Gaming?
No.
I don't think I have either. I wonder what they're like at gift wrapping. It's a big organisation, so there's probably going to be some good gift wrappers in there.
Yeah, it's got to be someone.
Maybe they'll send me something for Christmas. Unfortunately, all my sizes have gone back up.
Okay.
I found the weight I lost.
Oh no. It's very difficult at this time of year, isn't it?
Well, no, I actually did it last January, February, March. And it's been fighting a losing battle since. It's been good. I mean, it's been delicious. Yeah, I might even have to buy new trousers for ice.
You haven't kept your old trousers?
Of course not. I'm never doing that again.
Yeah, I'm never going to get back to that weight again. Yeah, I know.
Well, you know, I had a good sort of 3 years or so lighter, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. My lady in my life, she was doing some online stalking of me, and she said she saw a picture of me in which I looked much more angular. Said, "Is that you? And when was that from?" And it was taken the day that we scattered my parents' ashes, me and my brother and my sister. And I went and looked at it, and I was like, "Fuck!" I had cheekbones for 5 minutes, actual cheekbones. And I mentioned this to Fintan, and he's like, "Yes, I remember your skinny phase."
Yeah.
Skinny, it's all relative, isn't it?
Oh, well, that's always the weight loss jabs.
Yeah, I really don't fancy that. I am so needle phobic. I'd rather be fat.
Yeah, that's that, and there's also I think the way it works is that you just don't sort of fancy food anymore, from what I've heard from people on it, and that doesn't sound very fun to me.
It doesn't. I remember I was talking to. This is going to sound like I've gone to a dark place, but there was a lady that I used to know who had MS, and it was quite advanced. And she had a period where she kept aspirating food and kept getting pneumonia as a result.
Yeah.
Which is, pneumonia is fucking awful. But aspirated pneumonia, like non-viral pneumonia, is unbelievably bad. And they said to her, "We're going to put a feeding tube in." And I will never forget how upset she was.
Yeah.
Because she had so little autonomy that taking away the simple pleasure of food was massive for her.
Yeah.
And it actually made me look at food in a completely new way, as much more of a pleasurable thing, rather than I need to get this in me, it is fuel. Yeah. Yeah.
That's sad. But yeah, I feel like you need to find a way to still enjoy food, but not to excess, I suppose. Not just take away the enjoyment of it. And
yeah, because that's how addicts work, Mel. Yeah. Great. Brilliant. Thanks. Yeah, I'll just eat
I've
less.
solved all your problems.
Great. Brilliant. I'll just have one drink tomorrow, shall I? Yeah, great. Sorted. Brilliant. Yeah, send me some gin.
You're not going to invite me back now, are you?
I don't drink gin. My old bestie from school, Becky, she once told me she could drink me under the table, right? And Becky's like a normal-sized person, and I was quite a large person, and I recognized that body mass is important when it comes to absorbing alcohol. So I'm like, okay, let's go for it. And she said, yes. She said, but we're not going to do pints. We're going to go through the optics. And I was fine until we got to the gin. and I think she knew that there was going to be an Achilles heel at some point across the optics, and she was absolutely correct. Yeah.
Oh dear.
So I blame her.
Make it very far.
I blame her for my later alcohol-related woes.
Okay. Seems a little unfair, but
it was all my own fault, all my own doing. So listen, right? This is a bonus episode, okay? Because we've had authors on from books that were submitted to the Gambling Book Awards, and they've been terrific. And this is the guy today. The book is called Losing Big. It's by Jonathan D Cohen. Subtitle: America's Reckless Bet on Sports Gambling. Now, it's a really interesting episode because Jonathan, he's one of those people, I suspect he's got one of those brains that just doesn't stop. You know, he's just super smart. And he's got one of the best job titles I've ever heard.
What's that?
He's the Jon and Owen Jacobs Senior Program Officer for American Institution, Society and the Public Good at the American Academy of Arts and Sciences.
It's quite a mouthful, isn't it?
It's fucking amazing.
It's like your signature must go over 2 lines.
But you sort of feel like you want to put that into a short link making thing. Just like, I love it. I absolutely love it. But he's a really good guy, and it's a really interesting book. So the book is published by Columbia Global Reports, and it's not anti-gambling at all. It's actually just looking at errors that were made in the process of rushing out legal sports betting in the US. Okay. And he's found the human sort of eye of the storm as well, which is, I think when writers are working with something really complex, you have to have a human element to it. And I say this in the podcast with Fintan and Jonathan. It's something that Michael Lewis does really, really well. He finds the human heart of the story, which makes everything relatable and contextual. So Losing Big, Jonathan D Cohen, submitted for the Gambling Book Awards, and it's a terrific read, and it's not a really long book, which also makes a nice change, frankly. We've got some 600-page books in this that churches are going to have to be reading.
How long are they going to have to read all these books?
Well, you're on a long flight on Christmas Day, apparently.
So yeah, this is what I'm going to be doing.
But yeah, Jonathan's terrific, and it's an interesting episode. Fintan is here for the episode, but he was just a little bit too busy this morning to record an intro. So
you get me instead.
Yeah. Sorry about that, Mel. But this is a bonus episode, as I say. We're going to record an intro for the main episode in a minute, and then I've got all sorts of questions for you.
For me?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. Okay. Meet Jonathan D Cohen and enjoy the episode. We are very excited to welcome our next guest on the Gambling Files podcast because he comes as part of the Gambling Book Awards that we've launched. And I was really happy to find his book. And when his book was submitted, I was like, holy shit, this is really cool. And it's so, we're doing these episodes with authors of the books, and he's written a book, so he's here as an author, but he may have the greatest job title. I don't know if it's the greatest job title we've ever had, but it is the longest. So I'd like to introduce Jonathan D Cohen, who is the Jon and Owen Jacobs Senior Program Officer for American Institution, Society and the Public Good at the American Academy of Arts and Sciences.
You have to unfurl your business card.
Yeah, and that's our podcast. Thanks everyone for listening. Yeah,
you should have your business card on one of those banners that's flown by an aircraft. Yeah, just a light aircraft should be on call for. What do you do for a living? That would be awesome.
Yeah. The email address must be huge, right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, usually, yeah. The signature takes up the body of is really the body of the email. Yeah.
Sorry, John has to take an urgent medical call. It's his gonorrhea. Jonathan, or is it Jonathan or John?
John is fine.
John's
yeah,
fine.
Yeah.
Okay, John. You are the author of a book, like John number one says. This is going to get confusing. Author of a book, Losing Big: America's Reckless Bet on Sports Gambling. Tell us a little bit about your book. What have you done?
So the book was set out to be the first, and it so far is the only, really just sort of, let's say, encapsulation, sort of snapshot of the rise of sports betting in the United States following 2018. And it's meant to sort of be a short, and it is short, sort of digestible history and encapsulation of the causes and the consequences of the rise of sports betting. And the thesis being, not to sort of give it away, so I hope folks still read it or listen to it or whatever, but that we should have legal sports betting. We should, I think, even have legal online sports betting, in the United States. But the way it was rolled out was just so fast in my mind, and the word I use in the title of the book is reckless. It was done recklessly, and it didn't have to be so reckless. It could have been more careful, and any of the harms that we're now seeing in the United States, or any of the problems that we're now seeing, are not the result necessarily of sports gambling in and of itself, but the specific way, and the specific American way in which it was, much like my job title, unfurled across the public. And that is where the issue lies, and that's where sort of the course correction is going to have to happen.
Well, that's something that we've been hearing a lot about from people working in what the industry calls the responsible gambling sector, player protection. Because, in terms of infrastructure, state by state, there wasn't any. I mean, there are cases. There might be addiction assistance, but not specific gambling addiction. And I think that's certainly something. I mean, it's a perfectly justifiable criticism, isn't it?
Yeah. No. And that's right. Sorry. First of all, that's true. My reporting on this specifically is on the state of Colorado, as just as sort of an example case of how quickly this was rolled out. Yeah. And it's very clear, even at the time, that they sort of knew the infrastructure wasn't in place, and they went ahead and did it anyway, and unrolled it anyway. That both, they knew there was a lack of treatment, they knew there wasn't a sufficient pipeline of gambling counselors, and the alacrity, was sort of driven by the money, driven by sort of course, the industry pushing for sports gambling to be legalized. And I think any criticisms that has resulted from this lack of protections in the first place are sort of on the feet of the people who are pushing it to go so fast. And I'm in favor of them in the grand scheme getting sports gambling legalized, but what was the rush? And I think many of the problems they're now facing are sort of their own making, because they didn't make sure that those guardrails and that infrastructure was in place before they rolled it out.
It's pretty hard to argue against what you're saying. And I mean, let's sort of go back a little bit. So, I mean, specifically talking about the book, which those of you who are just listening can't see that I'm holding the book up in front of me. And I've got to say, you're the fourth author we've had on. And it's the fourth time I've had to say, I haven't finished your book yet. Which is like, fucking hell, what am I doing with my time, Fintan? I don't know.
And it's a short one. This one's really on you.
It is.
Don't worry. John doesn't hit deadlines. Don't worry about it. This isn't his thing.
Always something with you, isn't it? But I was just saying to Printon, I was just saying to Fintan before we came on, that it's a really lovely bit of print, because very often American books have very small typesetting, but this is laid out like a British book or a European book, so it's an easy read, and it's a really nicely printed book. So kudos to your publishers. But so, I mean, this doesn't sound to me like something that would be a project taken on by the Joan and Irwin Jacobs Senior Program Officer for American Institutions, Society and the Public Good at the American Academy of Arts and Sciences. So what motivated you to do this? Where did the idea come from, and how did you get it off the ground?
Yeah, so my last book is really the history of the American state lottery system. This came out in 2022. It's called For a Dollar and a Dream. And that was the that came out of my doctoral dissertation. I went to graduate school interested in the American dream and economic inequality, and I'm happen to be a competitive board game player, and the lottery sort of lined up as a sort of way to tell the story, a way to use games to tell the story really of the American dream and again of social mobility in this country. And so that book came out in 2022, which, as your listeners know, is sort of right around the time, a couple years after the Supreme Court decision that unleashed sports gambling, that sports gambling was really getting big and was sort of getting on the public radar. And that was the year of the New York Times first sort of investigative series into sports gambling in the United States. And I started writing this book. So I started thinking about losing big purely with the sense of like, something weird is going on. Like, this is different. This is different from the sports that I grew up with. This is different from the sports culture I grew up with. I don't have a bone to pick. I know the book sort of comes down pretty hard on the industry. I don't have like a great uncle who's a problem gambler, and I have all these, a bunch of skeletons in my closet. And I'm trying to like get ticket to the industry. It was really just, I'm a big sports fan. I was not a gambling fan per se, but sort of felt like I had this gambling policy expertise from my work on the lottery. And something was changing, and someone had to write a book about it, and fine, I'll do it. Was really the ethos I had, and I wanted to do it quickly. I have this full-time job, but as you said, that is technically apart from my work on gambling. I also have a bunch of children, so it's like, okay, if I can just sort of do this relatively quickly, and provide sort of a snapshot, and I know someone else, and it's coming in a few versions. Someone else will write the long 300-page, deeply reported, fuller version, and I can just sort of get this first version out right away. And that's what my goal, and that's why it's short. That's why it's readable. That's why it's accessible. That's why it tells like 80% of the history in 50% of the time. Was the goal.
That's a good elevator pitch. I've a few questions. So
I know where you're going to go with this, Fintan. You're going straight back to the competitive board game playing, aren't you?
Absolutely. Well, I was going to loop back to that at the end. Actually, there was a pin put in that one of like double underlined asterisks. Don't let him away with that. So, how many hours did you play on this game? So if you take Colorado as an example, so lobbying from the industry or vested parties. Potentially causes an accelerated, I don't know how libel laws work, but potentially an accelerated decision-making process, legislation passed, gambling addiction infrastructure not in place at the time. Is the infrastructure in place now? Is there things the politicians could do to pass a law to sort this out? Like where is it at now from when? Because obviously Colorado legalized a while ago.
Yeah. Right. In Colorado, one of the reasons I focused on it was a relatively early adopter, and it had this crazy, uniquely American sort of 3-step process. So it had to go first in the legislature, then the public, then the regulators. So it's sort of at each sort of step, you can sort of trace how the industry got its fingers into the pie a little bit or shaped the product. So is the infrastructure in place now? Of course, that's a subjective question. There is certainly in many states more infrastructure in place than there was at the time. At the time, there really was nothing. And in a couple of years after the sports betting bill passed, so it must have been 21 or 22, the Colorado did pass a subsequent bill that allocated funding for various sort of treatment-related initiatives. These were sort of block grants, so they could sort of be flexible year over year. But so, and this is true in some states, right? Massachusetts, I'm sure you guys have talked about in the past, right, is sort of the state that's like really doing the most to try to play catch up and to see what exactly we've wrought and to make changes both about in terms of limiting, in terms of VIP programs, you name it. But in some states, it's just like the cat's out of the bag, the genie's out of the bottle, and the legislators don't seem to care, or they don't seem to notice, and even if they do, I mean, in a state like Florida, it's like good luck. But that's true for Florida about like literally everything. So it's your own fault if you live in Florida. But even in a state like Colorado, where the lawmakers are genuinely well-meaning, and we're genuinely well-meaning, my fear, and it just so happened that the sort of the main character of the book, who John you'll meet, you met a little bit, but once you finish the book, you'll see it sort of finishes with his story too. he just happened to live in Colorado, and it's sort of like it's too late for Kyle. Was sort of my point, is that yes, the treatment infrastructure is being put in place now or belatedly, but I get again, America, America does this for all sorts of things. We sort of unleash, we allow the market to work its forces, and then oh whoops, now we have to course correct. But look at all these people who sort of got caught along the way, who ingested unsafe levels of THC because marijuana wasn't well regulated when it was rolled out, who got in trouble with legal online gambling because it wasn't safely set up when it was rolled out. So again, I sort of like, okay, I guess that's, you got to break eggs to make an omelet, but like the egg's name is Kyle, and he was like a real person, and he had a bad experience that didn't have to have.
I know I completely get it, and I think me and John, we're both sitting here in Europe, where in Europe, like, the government is a lot more protective,
right,
than American local and state government would be. In terms of, if we kind of benchmark, and I'm not trying to make this a what about them argument, just because it's not. I actually think the industry is really bad at it, right, and does it all the time. But to put in context, if we look at infrastructure in place for drug addiction, or like opioids is a good kind of public health.
Exactly. Yeah.
Where is gambling benchmarking in terms of like the infrastructure per, I don't know, whatever unit of measurement? Like, is it like it's even worse, or even less, or it's more, or just for context of how that stacks up?
Yeah. Well, and I'm going to focus on treatment, but with acknowledgement that there's all sorts of other types of work that could be done, right, in terms of guardrails and such. But there is, as far as I know, at the time I reported in the book, basically no federal spending of any kind, so from Washington, on gambling addiction in any way. The only way the only way it happens, the only place it happens is like sort of through the back door of mental health spending for members of the military. Is the only way you can get sort of gambling addiction sort of federally subsidized. Otherwise, there's nothing. And there is, of course, a not robust in terms of the federal budget, but robust in terms of millions of dollars of spending on alcohol and drug addiction treatment programs. Whether that we had that exact same phenomenon with opioids, we didn't have any spending on drug treatment and anything until the opioid crisis. It actually sort of like proves my point in terms of we had this pretty uniquely American distinction of letting the market work its forces, and then we allow the Sackler families to like carpet bomb the state of West Virginia with opioids, and now we have to fix it. But there has not been, I think you used the word course correction or whatever, sort of a proportional course correction when it comes to gambling in the area of treatment. Again, not to mention the legislative changes. And we're seeing lots of legislative changes now with tax rates and so on. And even a state like Kansas is considering getting rid of advertising or fixing its the gambling advertising program. But it just has not received well, of course, I think this because I wrote a book about it, but like it has not received the legislative attention I think that it deserves in comparison to, let's say, other comparable products like drugs or alcohol. But maybe this is understandable because it's relatively new. So I'm disagreeing with myself. But I think generally speaking, it's not on the radar yet politically in the ways that other comparable issues are.
No, that's very fair. It's quite interesting how the direction of the conversation, looking at it from within the gambling industry, I suppose, the direction of the conversation, it shifts. And so like within the industry, all the talk the last couple of years was about sweepstakes, right? Sweepstakes casinos and all of that. And now it's all prediction markets and all of that jazz. But that's not the same as the conversation that's being had at the consumer level. And it's not the same as the conversation that's going to be had in any state legislature or anything along those lines. Something that I've been arguing for quite a while, and I totally stand by this argument, is when people are critical of things to do with gambling, it always falls at the feet of the gambling industry. But my argument has been for quite a long time, and I'm sure some people that listen to this are going to fucking hate me for saying this, but a lot of the problems are caused by insufficient or poorly thought out regulation. Because all of these businesses that are playing in this area they all have compliance departments, and their sole job is looking at the rule book and making sure they don't fuck it up, and doing whatever they can to do that, because the fines can be extraordinary. And I just think, like when you were writing this, when you were researching this, did you ever think along those lines? Because honestly, the regulator, nobody's out there generally saying, fucking regulators, those bastards lost me my money. That is not happening. But the business that is playing by the rules as prescribed gets all the criticism. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying the industry is free from blame by any stretch of the imagination. But what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. Well, and not to put a too fine a point on it, but part of the issue in the U.S., and you could verify if this is true in Europe, but again, you've had sports gambling or gambling, sort of legal online gambling for so long that maybe it's sort of a different calculus. But because this was so recent, and of course, because America, money is speech, and sort of infected, or the politics is sort of infected with lobbying and so on, is that yes, the regulators are set up the walls of the sandbox or whatever, prescribe the boundaries of the product, but who was in the room with the regulators when they were setting that up? Maybe it was at the regulator's invitation, but in many cases, and as I watched like 17 hours of this from Colorado, it's just like a room with the members of the Colorado Gaming Commission and a representative from FanDuel, a representative from DraftKings, representative from William Hill, and so on, just like in the room with him, providing advice on what the shape should look like. So you're right. This is why I'd rather it be regulated than unregulated, right? Like the fact that there is accountability, the fact that there can be regulators at these companies. If you tell them what to do, they will follow the rules, lest they get fined. Whether the fines are big enough is another question. But that it is absolutely the advantage of the legal market. But to me, in many cases, in that sense, we're sort of not taking advantage of the legal market in the way that we could. We're not utilizing the fact that it's a legal market in the way that we could. And John, just to your point about the conversation being now about prediction markets, previously about sweepstakes, right? Those are both effectively unregulated. The conversation before sweepstakes, as far as I'm concerned, was all about the black market, and that was just the bogeyman solution for everything from the industry was concerned. Is we can't have a higher tax rate, we can't have advertising restrictions, we can't not offer bets on the speed of the next pitch because the black market, and we need to compete. And that to me is sort of a crock of shit for all sorts of reasons.
Interesting.
I'm happy to get to that. But that again explains in part how we got to the, let's call it, loose regulatory environment that we got. I'm sure people in the industry don't think it's loose; they think it's too tight. But that to me sort of explains how we got to the boundaries of the sandbox. Which you're right, no one's blaming a regulator, but the regulators are operating in many senses as sort of at the behest of these companies.
One of the issues when you are drafting regulations, etc., is if your state is new to this, then you don't have the expertise within that state to do this.
100%.
But what drives me a little bit bonkers, and we see this in Europe as well. This is happening today in Europe. Is people aren't looking at their neighbors and seeing what has historically fucked up and what has historically worked, and they're not. There's just no learning from history, and that's going to come into Fintan's conversation about the black market in just a second, I suspect.
Yeah. But this is America. This is a country that has no shadow, to quote Nathaniel Hawthorne, right? Why should we learn from other countries? Why should we even bother to learn from Nevada, like the state that's had unfettered gambling since 1931? Like, why should we even bother? Let's just, we're New Jersey. We know how to do it best. New Jersey doesn't know how to do anything. But yes, the exact same phenomenon sort of being repeated.
Land-based gambling in New Jersey for a while, right?
Land-based, right? But that's a great example, right? Land-based is, as of course totally different from sort of online, and land-based casino games are totally different from online sports gambling. But it's just this assumption, this ignorant assumption that a in Tennessee, the lottery commission was told to run the online sports gambling for a little while. Like,
That's
what
not
does someone
uncommon.
who knows the law? It's insanity. And again, I'm not saying this shouldn't be legal. It just, this is all at the feet of the alacrity of this of unnecessary speed, of the heedlessness with which it was rolled out, not the product itself.
In the UK, the gambling industries, our trade body, our lobbying body, it covers all forms of gambling, which doesn't make any sense because so many of them conflict. So it's not just regulators, it's not just the law. The industry does that too. It conflates them and says, yeah, well, look, they've got that gambling part in common, so fuck it. Let's have a party.
Right. And yeah, and obviously, right, the thing's different here, right? Because the lotteries are state run. They're run by state governments. And for whatever reason, maybe thankfully, no one ever thought, oh, the state should run the sports books. Like, we should have a state-run sports books like I think they might have in Finland or one of the Scandinavian countries. So we haven't had it. This is the other problem. Not to sort of bog this down, Fintan, I want to get to the black market conversation. But the beauty of American federalism, the whole point of having 50 American states, is you can have 50 concurrent experiments, and you could see which ones are going well and doing better, and learn from each other. But this was just came out so quickly and basically the same way. Some states have no gambling at all. Some have land-based only. Some have online. But all the online are basically exactly the same, such that you're not learning different lessons in different places. You're just learning the same lesson over and over again without sort of the benefit that sort of this American federal structure is supposed to be able to provide. That's another sort of high horse of mine, but I'll come down and we can talk about something that's actually interesting.
Okay. Let's touch. Okay, black market is a crock of shit, I think is a banging line and might make an appearance on social media. Walk me through your theories on that.
Yeah, so a couple things. First is, as you guys well know, there are some players, bettors, who will never convert from the black market. And it is a pipe dream to say that someone who has their bookie, who likes betting on credit, who doesn't like paying taxes, is ever going to convert. Mm-hmm. So let's say it wasn't a crock of shit from like 2018 through 2023, but it's been a crock of shit ever since. Because whatever players were going to convert from the black market did so at the first blush. Because of course, if you want to gamble, it's of course more convenient to bet legally. And to, the apps are obviously the interfaces are infinitely times better. But once that first wave of conversion did or didn't happen, you can't just claim, oh, we should be able to get away with basically whatever we want because the black market exists. Just because there is an illegal heroin dealer like down the street doesn't mean I can like design my like marijuana gummies with like a bunch of like kids like cartoon characters on them that will make them appeal to kids. There's the existence of this black market boogeyman, which is sort of used as a solution and as a justification for everything. I get that it exists and I guess it is real, but it doesn't excuse what I see as sort of unnecessarily harmful behavior. And I think we should be holding legal regulated operators to a higher standard than some outfit based in Curacao. No offense to Curacao.
All right. So, okay. I think we can agree they are held to a higher standard than
absolutely
the offshore
guys.
So
and they should be, as they should be.
I don't think that's fair. And they are operating to a higher standard. The black market definitely exists in the US and it will until it is legal sports betting and online casino, which the online casino black market's even bigger in America. Prohibition doesn't work, right? Is the issue there. I completely get your point on people who would have migrated. There's probably a bit more nuance in that around payment methods. Getting money in and out, the banking systems and stuff, unless you go like full crypto. And then if you've gone full crypto, you're doing something else anyway. And that's completely different. So there's definitely, there probably is some VIPs who would convert just because like this banking is just too much of a nightmare, or my bank have flagged it, they won't support these transactions anymore. you know, people were used to buy Amazon gift cards and use those to deposit back before the regulated stuff kicked in. It was payments was crazy. But America does have a huge black market issue, like hands down. Like it's still, and particularly because of California and Texas, just based on sheer population, and because of that, you know, the product offering is good. The lines are sharp. The customer service is excellent. Like, because the addressable market and the number of rich people just in those two states, they've got infrastructure. They've got, you know, some of the smartest people. So it I would argue it is still a competitive product. For the kid in college, is it? Probably not. But then he's probably not looking at the guys with the call center in Costa Rica. He's probably looking at the online crypto because he's doing his meme coins and he's leverage gambling on Robinhood, and he's probably on a different path, right? So probably a different, it's probably a different journey he's going to go on, which, you know, and like we won't even, like, you know, option, you know, kids being able to do options trading. Right?
That next time. Let's talk about that next time. Yeah,
right?
yeah.
I think that's your next book, right? I think
it might have to be, unfortunately. Yeah.
And I think there's, but, you know, if you look at that intersection of meme coins, get rich quick, small stakes, and it does tie into that kind of, basically it's a lottery mentality, but it's on the blockchain type thing, is, I think, super interesting. And, you know, as a father of a teenage boy, it's terrifying. Okay, but I get your point of, and I think it is something that the gambling industry massively overuses, is, oh, if you don't let us do this, it'll go offshore. And it gets it's not that they're wrong. It gets overused, and it is the boy who cried wolf type story. So really good example is Germany. So Germany introduced legislation for, particularly online casino, which limited types of games, jackpots, really strict monthly deposit limits, etc. Sweden kind of went through a similar journey. Massive offshore industries off the back of that. Like, just people absolutely printing money, servicing the offshore market for those countries. The UK, not so much, but it's something that the UK industry bangs on about. Oh, if we don't do this, everyone's going to go offshore. And it's kind of like, yeah, under certain circumstances they will. Under other circumstances, probably not. And it's like everything. There is, like, look, guys, there's a middle ground here. We can't just extreme everything. And I think in America, on a state by state basis, you know, a legalized state, it's probably fine. The unregulated states, everything's black anyway. And, you know, America's got a long history of illegal sports gambling. Like, that's as American as apple pie, right? That is, like, you know, you read Doyle Brunson's biography and, like, the crazy stuff they were getting up to back in the day and things like this. So I think that's super fast. Okay, so you talked about, you mentioned guardrails, which I think is a great phrase. We've got legalized gambling. It's probably not going anywhere. It's only going to expand, and probably casino is probably going to follow behind it, because, you know, the need for tax revenue is never going to go away. What kind of guardrails do you envisage, or what should be done, or what should be in place?
Yeah, my North Star for guardrails, if I was going to boil it down to a single word, which you didn't ask me to do, but I'm going to do it anyway, is friction, right? Is sort of slowing the process down such that it becomes not impossible, but almost impossible for someone to end up gambling more than they intend or more than they can afford, sort of almost accidentally, just based on my reporting and the conversations I had. You know, someone bets on this, gets mad, he doubles down, chases his losses, loses again, doubles down, chases his losses. All of a sudden, sort of, it started with $50, ends up at $1,500. Yeah. So speed bumps along the way, again, that does not prevent this person from gambling in the first place, but natural checks, more than what we have in the app now, which are like these little pop-up notifications that you know, my 2-year-old could figure out how to dismiss, right? Something along the, you know, in The Simpsons, when Homer goes to buy a gun and he's told it's a 5-day waiting period, and he says 5 days, but I'm mad now. Like some cooler period, right? You want to deposit money, but it takes 24, 48 hours to like show up in your account in some way, so that you basically can't get in this cycle of loss chasing. Again, not that you can't bet, not that you, maybe not even that you can't bet a lot, but that you can't bet in such a way that like there's speed bumps along the hill. So you can't just like fall down the hill sort of frictionlessly. It's sort of lubricated for you by the apps and by these bonus offers and by these advertisements and by these inducements. But there's natural checks and balances, guardrails again, that to slow it down. So I can talk more specifically about what some of those are, but that's sort of at a high level the kind of thing that I would like to see.
So what guardrails are there now in terms of things like deposit limits, self-exclusion, those kind of things in place?
Yes. So self-exclusion is sort of different, right? That to me is like, if you're taking the snowball analogy, that's like you're already near the bottom of the hill, so to speak, if you're at the point of self-exclusion. And so what they offer now, and this is of course an advantage of the legal market in comparison to the non-legal market, is the offering of deposit limit, time limit, time on app, and the like. But the problem now is that those are completely optional and require user opt-in at the start. And so the issue is, first of all, 18 or 21-year-old young men in America are notorious for loving limits on their own behavior and being wise and planning ahead with all sorts of things. So the idea that someone is going to open an app voluntarily, but before they even sort of understand what's going on, maybe like set up a limit for themselves is I think wishful thinking, to say the least. That they're going
to. We touched on this with a previous guest, Sarah, and she made the excellent point of every one of these customers are risk takers at heart, anyway.
Right.
And this is just another risk.
Oh, I'm gonna let me buy a new car, but I'm just gonna like put a thing on it so it can't go above like 75 miles an hour, or sorry, I don't know what that is in kilometers, but like let me just like put an artificial limit on it. Like it's just unrealistic to. Again, I know it's an advantage of the legal market that it is an option, but the take-up rates, the usage rates in Massachusetts of DraftKings, it's like 1% to 2% of customers use any of these tools. And I don't think that's
surprised it's that high, again, to be honest.
For some of them, it's like point something percent. Yes,
but as a legislation, it's a stroke of a pen type thing, right? This could be just in other countries, this is baked in of like you have to set a limit.
Yeah, or what Flutter has for the under 25s in the UK and Ireland, for example, right? Would be amazing. Would be the kind of thing I think would go a long way and would be an exact kind of speed bump that whether they're forced to regulatorily. I don't want to sound like a big nanny state, liberal. Like I'm happy for the companies to sort of self-regulate in this way, but the way they're self-regulating now is not actually regulation. It's just sort of window dressing for regulation.
Okay. What other speed bumps?
So I mentioned. So I actually don't know. I'm curious what you guys think about affordability checks, and sort of proofs of affordability, because they sound good on paper, and I was sort of interested in them when I first heard about them, but now they seem like fiction. like I don't know if they're actually would work, and also it seems a little arbitrary that we like don't require people to prove that they can afford. Like we let people use credit cards for all sorts of things, but then for gambling we're going to require affordability. So I don't know what you guys think about those as realistic options.
And again, I think this is like from the European perspective, like some players absolutely hate it. They're in Europe, we've got open banking, so we've got like a pretty frictionless banking, reporting, connecting in and stuff like that. So I think some of the affordability checks from a US perspective get really tricky at a state level. You literally end up, somebody's emailing in a PDF of their bank statement, right? And pay slips and stuff like that. Which I think in America just wouldn't fly. I think that'd just be that is everybody.
And that seems silly. That seems a little silly, candidly. Yeah.
But it is in place in countries, like in a number of European countries, it's, if you want to gamble, this is what you have to do. And I think just culturally, it's slightly more acceptable. But there is if you go on gambling Twitter, it is the number one complaint.
Yeah. Interesting.
And it is a big speed bump for sure.
Yeah. Right. Okay, so another one, just the one that comes to mind for me, and this is pretty auspicious. We're speaking the day after the MLB and various sportsbook partners removed the betting markets for individual pitch betting bets, which is, just be clear, is another example of the recklessness of why did we ever have the option to bet on an individual pitch speed or ball strike, but limiting the betting catalog, as it's called, on all sorts of things that to me is meant to inculcate time on app, meant to inculcate platform engagement, but in an unhealthy way, and in a way that is not, even to our conversation earlier, is not really competing with the black market. Like the black market isn't offering speed of next pitch or next tennis serve markets in a way that's sort of reliable, and all you're doing is sort of turning your sports betting app into a slot machine. I know they would literally like to do that with online casino, but that's another thing. And not to mention these obscure betting markets that actually aren't big money makers for the company by any means. I'm talking about like Malaysian women's doubles badminton, minor league British darts, which I know John is a big fan of.
That's
handball, Czech table tennis. Yeah,
your chap, is it Kyle, cites that, or you cite it.
Minor league British
something
darts.
He bets
He was up at 3 a.m. Yeah, exactly. And so to me, again, they're not even big money makers, and it's perfectly legal, of course, for the companies in many states to offer these markets. But all they are is a trapdoor for someone with a gambling problem. It's just an outlet for them to bet when they're up in the middle of the night. They're waiting for some tennis tournament in Singapore or wherever. No offense to Singapore. Just get rid of them, or severely limit, let's say, how much money can be bet on them, because that is not it's not reasonable to me, or it's not reasonable to me to expect that someone is going to like seek that out on the black market instead. Maybe they'll just like go to sleep.
Yeah, we've a lot of addiction experts on, and I think somebody in the throes of an episode, or however you want to call it, they're going to gamble on something. They're going to do something to tick this box, and it'll be anything. Right, it'll be coin flips with the taxi driver. It'll be like
right.
It's right. Logging onto this crypto exchange, or I'm going to go to this. There's the way it's kind of being explained to me is like there's somebody with a gambling addiction or any type of addiction. There's typically an underlying cause, and this is in a way the symptoms of what's going on. And I get your point on like limiting markets and limiting bet types and these kind of things. It makes sense. It's not going to solve. I don't think that one is the one that solves it, because they're going to bet on something anyway. If this is their thing, they're, it's like, I don't know, it's you're at the back of the minibar in your hotel room at 3 a.m. Like, fuck it.
Do you know what it's a little bit like? It's a little bit like the credit card ban. Like, it makes logical sense. Credit card ban makes logical sense. But in practical terms, as an industry, if you lose credit cards, you lose an easily monitorable form of payments, an easily trackable, measurable, and you lose all of that shit if you cut that out. And it's actually better in terms of looking after the players, in terms of tracking their spend and all of that shit, to keep the credit cards. So I think that's sort of analogous to what you're saying, Fintan.
Right. No, and Fintan, I don't disagree with you, specifically for folks who have sort of run into trouble, who are sort of, let's to use the metaphor, already at the bottom of the hill. You're absolutely right. They are going to find a way to bet, whether it's coin flips or whatever. And Kyle, who was betting on minor league British darts, described betting on it basically as betting on a coin flip. He was just like, it would pick a name out of a hat effectively and just bet on them. But again, my focus again is trying to get folks before they get to the bottom of the hill, which is also why VIP is not at the top of my list, because that's sort of, I think you've already picked up a lot of velocity to belabor this metaphor if you're in a VIP program. But to me, it's like, can we before someone has an addiction, before they've developed this episode, and they're just sort of gambling, and it's like just teetering. It's teetering on the point from being casual to being a little bit more than casual. Can we get you to close your app? Can we get you to close the app entirely because there's no more betting, because the West Coast baseball games are over, it's 1 a.m, there's nothing to bet on? Before you like scratch the itch, before you develop that addiction that like is in fact an addiction, and you can't stop, right? Even if you wanted to, you are going to find somewhere to bet. Can we just make it a little bit harder to find something to bet on, such that you're not going to like go and open up this whole separate app or call up a bookie or whatever, because you're, you know, maybe you are just going to like call it a night. And maybe this is wishful thinking on my part now that someone that, or I'm talking about a very sort of narrow segment of the populace. But
look,
I think it's possible.
Look, I think that cusp thing, there is a lot of like stuff happening in the industry around what's called markers of harm. So there is like scientific, like fact, these are the markers, and you were looking for these identifying, like, you know, sequential deposit, like there's a bunch of signals that can be sent. You know, gambling companies in other countries, you know, legally mandated have to intervene and kind of catch people. Like, it's exactly what you're saying. Like, this exists.
Not in the good old US of A. Yeah.
This is a real thing. Well, but I think...
I just realised I was talking on mute there, sorry.
Will it ever exist in the USA, right? You know, America's so built on individual freedom and individual choice. Like, that is like core to the identity of America. Like,
well, you know what will drive this, right? You know what will drive this? Seriously.
Cool.
People realising that there is money to be made in player protection. And we are seeing this in the industry. We are seeing that area of the industry growing as a commercial entity, if you like. You know, and I'm certainly not being critical of OpenBet in the slightest, but OpenBet bought Necton, and you know, Necton I think is you know, it's being sold into US markets, and they do lottery and shit as well, which is obviously very useful. But it's, yeah, I think once there is money there, then the will follows. And unfortunately, and I'm not dissing any American politicians when I say this, money definitely talks loudest in US politics. And once there's money to be made in this, that they'll, you know, it'll all follow.
But John, if you go to your point of like, there's money in player protection, there is. Like, do you want to get $100 out of somebody today, or $1 a month,
right,
or $1 a week for the next 5 years, right? Or whatever the maths works out, right? You get my point.
Yeah.
Don't do maths on air, people. There's somebody screaming at the computer right now, and that's been proven too. And I think, you know, in terms of like your point of like, can we catch somebody early before they fall down the hill, right? I think completely agree. That exists. Like, that technology is there. That is being used by gambling companies around the world right now, very successfully. It's such an easy stroke of the pen bit of legislation. And yeah, like, you know, even there's, you know, operators in America with US licensing are doing markers of harm intervention in other countries. Like, they have the tech.
Right.
This is a big jump.
There's this amazing video that you might have seen. This is from the MIT Sloan Sports Conference from, I think, 2022. It's from a Fanatics executive who's talking about all the data they have. She's bragging quite effectively, you know, and she's from somewhere in the responsible gambling, you know, world at Fanatics, of all, exactly what you're saying, all the markers of harm they have, basically ways that they have to predict whether someone is running into trouble. I think it's deposit frequency is sort of the number one metric that they use. The second metric, which is very interesting, is number of or percentage of deposits that are placed on days of the week other than Saturday. So if you're depositing on like a Tuesday, that is like a red flag, basically, of some kind, because you're not betting on American football, is what it amounts to. But the question, just to your point, is, okay, Fanatics has this data. Amazing. Who's using it at Fanatics? Is it the responsible gambling team? Is it the VIP team? Is it the, you know, customer acquisition team? Like, it's beyond that. It's a black box. And as you said, there's no legislative requirement for disclosure of some of that data and so on. So yes, the companies have it. They have the data. They have the capacity. And it's a question of whether it's by legislation or by self-regulation or by some other means that they leverage it towards sort of these protective ends. And maybe, to use your analogy, right, like you can shear a sheep many times, you can only slaughter it once. Like, they need to be taught or forced to start shearing sheep instead of slaughtering them.
It's a wonderfully optimistic take.
I'm trying, I'm trying not to be naive. It's like, oh, gambling is, and like there are of course all these people who have positions like mine, have takes like mine, who are basically just prohibitionists, whether explicitly or implicitly. And I'm trying really hard not to be that and to thread the needle.
Look, it's your book's fantastic. It's really well researched. I think it's a great read. Your points are valid.
But
no, there's no but. Like the industry needs to do better, and the industry can do better. And I think
the industry can apply pressure to regulators to do better as well. Like we can take that to the table in those conversations.
And I agree with that, because there's always going to be that tragedy of the commons type situation. Well, if I'm too strict and my competitors aren't, I'm going to lose market share and I'm going to miss my quarterly earnings. So it has to be a level playing field for it to work in reality. Like nobody wants to get sacked for missing targets. But
that's the case both for and against self-regulation, right? The self-regulation, either it resolves that problem and reduces the competition, or they just set the floor for so low that it doesn't make a difference.
And in a way, in America, it's much easier than other markets because there are so few regulated operators in comparison to other countries. Like if you take the UK, there's 500 plus operators. Right,
crazy. Yeah,
right. So it's a very different situation. So America is actually one of the better ones. And now, maybe with the common enemy of prediction markets, maybe that's the.
I'm wondering, like, if this is what's going to get what California over the finish line. Like this of all things is what's going to sort of be the kick in the pants, for example, for a place like California. But yeah, it's crazy.
The tribes, I think, will decide. That's
right. No,
Texas.
Trust me, it goes
Texas.
Yeah,
Texas will happen first.
You think so? I would absolutely book that bet. I do not think that. I think California is absolutely happening before Texas, especially with the Trump family associated with the prediction markets and whatever. This is
do not underestimate the power of Miriam. She has sunk so much money in there. That money is going to start talking, and soon. I'm not betting any kidneys on this. I'm just saying. Now, so Fintan, I know you've got to go and do some very important executive type things, but Jon, competitive board games.
Oh yeah. Go on.
Yes.
What was the game?
Okay, so I've been a board game player for a long time, sort of European style long form strategy games. I'm going to list a whole bunch of games that are actually my favorite games, and then I'm going to get to the ones that I'm actually competitive in. So I'm a big fan of games like Terra Mystica, Agricola, Scythe. These are all sort of like Settlers of Catan on steroids. Settlers of Catan, but like remove the dice, right? So that it's not just about like whoever can roll a 7 at the optimal time is going to win, right? It's really, really Terra Mystica is whatever. It's a game of perfect information like chess, and you can imagine the sort of level of rule making you need to do to account for that. So those are games I like to play. It's 3 hours a pop minimum. Everyone's like either in tears at the end or like strangling one another over the table. And then this is like somewhat embarrassing to say, but the games that I have played competitively, and that including a stint as the world #1 ranked player on Board Game Arena, so #1 out of like, let's say 500,000 people who play online, are slightly less competitive in their nature. So these are games like Wingspan and Castles of Mad King Ludwig, which sounds embarrassing to say out loud, but these are sort of like Catan level in their difficulty. But yes, I've spent you asked how much time I spent. I've definitely put in my 10,000 hours on both games. And look at what all I have to show for it.
How does the rankings work? Like, how do you become like the #1 person that wins?
Yeah, it's a basic ELO system, so that you hit once you hit above a 300 ELO, you're like into like sort of the highest tier of players, and then every game that you win, the points that you score is, and you theoretically can go to the moon. You can get as high a score of infinity theoretically, but you get more points from beating better players. So if you beat someone,
is this like there's organized tournaments, or is it online?
No, so this is sort of there are organized tournaments also, but the version I did was sort of I was the #1 all time in Wingspan for a brief period, because it's sort of like rankings that are not seasonal or anything. And so yeah, for a period of 6 to 9 months before I had my second kid, I had the number one ranking.
Do you get like one of the big rings?
You got absolutely jack shit. You know what I got? You know what I got when I told my wife? I got an eye roll when I told my wife that I'd reached number one. That's like how impressive this was.
What a wonderful award!
And you still haven't done the dishes.
Yeah, exactly. Like basically, I was like, at least if I'm gonna play a board game, I'll spend all my time online playing a board game. At least let me be the number one player, and at least think that's cool. No.
Yeah, I'm the number one ranked player in the world at something, Fintan. It's a game you'll never have heard of. It's just a little game on the iPhone. And I'm number one. Not going to tell you what it is. Don't want you to go and look. But it's true.
All right.
And I'm unlikely to be dethroned anytime soon.
But so this is the thing. This lands totally flat if you've never heard of the board games like Wingspan or Castles. But and this is going to sound like cope, but Wingspan is popular. They sell it at Target. This is like a real popular board game that I'm the former number one player at. And when people have heard of it, they're like, "Oh, that's cool." But then when people haven't heard of it, it's like it sounds like a total lame.
No, it's a huge game. It's one of the games that's revolutionized and brought people back to board games. It's a massive game.
Absolutely, but if you've never heard of it, why would you care? And how would you know that? So
no, the guy that invented it's like royalty.
They don't respect it as a board game, right? But people
really?
who are serious board game players, they don't care about it either. It's.
What the fuck do they know?
I'm really glad.
Huh?
Well, it's actually a lot like the gambling stuff, where it's like people who are in the world of it are just so high on their own supply and think that all these small differences matter, whereas to the outside it's totally unintelligible. But like someone to my wife, I might as well be playing chess. Like for all she knows, it's basically the same thing. But when you're in the world, oh no, this game is different from that game but like just we become so obsessed with our own differentiation from the ones that are closest to us.
Of course. Right. On that, thank you very much.
John, thank you. The book, for anybody that wants to have a read of it, is Losing Big, America's Reckless Bet on Sports Gambling by Jonathan D Cohen. It is available from all good book retailers, and that big one that we won't mention, it's published by Columbia Global Reports. And I'm not going to tell you how much it costs, because it's in dollars on the back of this one.
It's cheap. It's pretty cheap.
I don't know the exchange rate. But good luck with the book. Good luck with the Gambling Book Awards submission. Long list will be coming out shortly after this episode, actually.
Ooh.
I know, right?
Very exciting. Thank you guys for having me. Thank you for I think a measured conversation. It's always fun when there's a little bit of disagreement, but not too much. So I think this was just the right amount. Yeah.
We remember the world when people could disagree and still get on.
I wish.
It's all good. Brilliant. It's all good.
Thanks, John.
Thank you.
Guys.
If you've enjoyed this episode of the Gambling Files podcast, please find us on LinkedIn. Give us a big, juicy, succulent like. That nearly went wrong. You can find us under the name The Gambling Files Podcast. You can find us on Twitter under The Gambling Files. I think the handle is just @GamblingFiles. You can connect to myself, John Bruford, or Fintan Costello, also on LinkedIn. We're also both on Twitter. And you can find all of our previous episodes at www.thegamblingfiles.com. If you enjoyed it, please share, tell your friends, tell your family, tell your colleagues, and we'll see you next time.